The slogan for this crusade is listen, learn, and do. This means listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. This is Alison Anton. You're listening to the ForgiveNest Podcast for A Course in Miracles, your place to explore ACIM topics in meditation, healing, and your special function in forgiveness. Today's episode will focus on a structure for daily practice laid out by Robert and Emily Perry of the Circle of Atonement ACIM community. Most of you probably know there are daily practices in the workbook, but what do I do if I'm reading the text? And if I am doing the workbook, how am I supposed to remember my daily lesson? And in general, what should I actually do each day to practice ACIM correctly and diligently? I know from my past experience that I actually have to do things to learn. The course is for doing, undoing, learning, and healing others. It's active. And that's exactly what Jesus is saying in the line I read to start. Listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. So today we're going to take this little but power-packed passage and bring all these three elements together in a daily 5-fold course practice. We'll put into practice listening, undoing, and doing. So if you're like I was, you too may have a hard time putting everything from the course into actual practice. I'm sharing this structure with you because it's brought profound results to me and to so many others who are using it for their daily course practice. For our purposes today, I'm focusing on a 5-fold path of daily practice. It's easy to remember, and it's a very workable foundation each day, whether you're reading the text, the workbook, the manual for teachers, or the supplements. We'll actually see 7 steps in the circles practice diagram I'm going to show you, but I'm condensing a couple of the steps because I'm focusing on basics in this episode, a good starting point for new students and for old students getting used to the daily course workout. I've been given permission to share the Circle of Atonement's very colorful diagram of the structure that we'll look at together. The Circle has their own 60-minute podcast on this, and that's also the place to download the diagram if you're a visual person like me and like to have something to refer back to later. I highly recommend watching the full episode. The link to watch the Circle's podcast on this topic is circleofa.org/podcast, and it's episode 129 called How to Practice A Course in Miracles. I love this stone arch depiction. We'll see as we go all the way around it, the entire structure really validates the listen, learn, and do passage that I read earlier, where we're developing the habits we need to form on a daily routine basis to eventually achieve the goals of A Course in Miracles. You can really see there is a structure to course practice. Here is a real working outline to follow based on what A Course in Miracles defines as practice, scattered throughout the 2,000 or so of the course pages. Fortunately, Robert Perry has spent decades in deep course research and has already done the nitty-gritty work of collecting this data for us and laying it down into a very workable, practical way. Thank you, Robert. Of course, the capstone at the top is Giving Miracles. This is a course in miracles, so really the foundation stones all lead to our ability and our willingness to correctly extend miracles to others with the correct intention and motivation. So let's go through each of these stones, so to speak, that make this lovely arch or pillar of our day. Let's start at the bottom left, where we have our foundation stones. It's morning time, as you can see with the sun rising, and here we have our 2 morning practices, course study and meditation. I personally start with morning meditation first before diving into reading, even if I'm practicing the workbook. From there, I can read my daily section with deeper attention. But it doesn't matter which of these, study or quiet time, you prefer to do first. I think most people start with the study and then they go into meditation from there. But I'll start with meditation first. And listening is exactly what we do in course-based meditation. It's very relational. We spend the time mostly learning to find a deeper space within our mind where we actually connect with Jesus. We connect with the Holy Spirit and eventually with God. This is the space we give ourselves so they can help us reestablish our personal relationship with them. It's our time with them. And doing this first thing in the morning helps us set the stage to carry them with us throughout the day. Morning and night, devote what time you can to serve its proper aim, and do not let the time be less than meets your deepest need. That's the general guideline I use for meditation, as much as I can. For me, on most days, I spend at least an hour and often more in the morning, and then 30 minutes again at night. I've been meditating since my mid-20s and always made it a priority. But the time that we give to meditation is really personal for each individual. And Jesus also states it's often not beneficial to spend long hours in meditation. This particular episode isn't on how to meditate using course-based practices simply due to time constraints. There will be much more on that to come. I plan on doing programs based on meditation because, like I said, I'm very dedicated at meditation and it's just always been such a big part of my spiritual life. But I've also found that if we don't understand the purpose of meditation, we won't do it. So that's another reason to have the structure in place so we always remind ourselves of the why and what of it. For students who are going through the workbook, each day has its own set of meditation instructions for quiet time. But this pillar structure really is set up to be used daily no matter which section we're studying. We can and should spend some time every morning learning to listen if we're reading the text or other sections too, even if these sections don't have specific practices associated with them on a daily basis. This walking the path arch is the structure that can be used as a guide for whatever section in the course you're in. So let's move on to study time. This is where we get the fodder for the rest of the day. A daily study would include one daily lesson of the workbook or one section of the text or the manual for teachers. Our study periods are another form of listening. We're literally listening to Jesus speak through words on the page as we read the section or the lesson. Over time, our listening deepens. This study period also sets the space for how and why we need to undo the error. Remember, the first and second part of what he said in our passage is, listen to my voice and learn to undo the error. The morning reading gives us a theme we can refer to through the day for practice. Daily themes are obvious if we're in the workbook. It's our daily lesson. But text readers can also come up with a daily theme. We can do this by picking a short passage in our daily study section that calls to us. This theme is our practice statement, which we call our daily reminder. It helps us remember the errors in our mind we're learning to undo during the day. Our day is where we inevitably come face to face with all the errors in our thinking. If you're a course student, you know how easy it is to read your section or lesson for the day, meditate on it, and then go hours or even a day only to forget it completely. It's gone as soon as we get into the trappings of our work and our relationships and the daily grind of life. And so this is what we need the next 3 stones for: hourly remembrances, frequent reminders, and response to temptation. I'm chopping these three into one stone for simplicity. These three stones are one fold, so to speak, in the five-fold path, as I've titled this episode. Fold 1 is study, fold 2 is meditation, and fold 3 we can simplify for our purposes as reminders, or the practice statement. The hourly remembrance is generally setting a couple minutes on the hour to give over the previous hour and give up the upcoming hour to the Holy Spirit, as well as to recite the practice statement of the day. And that's what our frequent reminders are for too. These are usually every 15 to 20 minutes that we set to recite our daily practice statement that we picked up from our morning study section. Lastly, in this trio that I'm combining into one is response to temptation, which is really just a fancy phrase for that person totally triggered me, or I can't believe this is happening to me, or I hate myself for this. In other words, you've been tempted into seeing and thinking incorrectly, and you're requesting to have your response to this situation corrected. The most common way the Course suggests to have your response to temptation corrected is simply to recite your daily reminder. So like I said, for now we can lump this very important topic into the frequent reminders stone. So of course the question arises, how do I actually remember to recite my daily reminder? Like I said, we often go hours or even all day before we actually remember. The ego would have us forget, so we need to employ something to help counteract that. And here's where a timer comes in. Technology can help us out in this. I use a phone app called Meditation Bell that chimes a very nice calming reminder. I personally set it for every 20 minutes, but you can try hourly to start, or every half hour, or if you're gung-ho, every 15 minutes. Another use of technology, quote unquote, is the use of sticky notes. We write our reminder onto sticky notes every morning and stick them wherever we look the most. For me, it's the back of my iPhone and on the side of my laptop. Both of these suggestions really help, and I highly recommend you use them religiously. What good is a frequent reminder if you don't remind yourself to practice it? And the same goes with asking for guidance. This, too, is a very important theme in the Course. So we're moving up a stone here. We can think of guidance as part of the listen to my voice instruction. Listen to my voice, learn to undo the error. We learn to undo the error by listening to the voice of instruction. In the Course, asking Jesus and the Holy Spirit for guidance in just about everything we do is suggested. As our practice deepens and we learn to apply Course principles to more and more situations in our daily life, the more we want to ask for guidance. We realize it's not only so much better when we're in partnership with Jesus and the Holy Spirit in this, it's part of the plan of salvation for the sonship. We're learning to realign our wills so they're joined. Only when our minds are joined can we accomplish this. Only together. And that leads us to the top, our keystone, giving miracles. Everything so far has been to purify our minds so we can be actively ready to give miracles to others when needed. Jesus calls this being miracle ready and miracle minded. We're in the right state of mind, open to expressing love to others, seeing people equally, and with forgiving eyes. This is the active doing piece of the passage we've been focusing on. Listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. He's asking us to be ready to work miracles. This is a course in miracles. He's putting everything into place, all of the practices throughout the day, so we can learn to be miracle ready. Now, of course, miracles don't happen only at high noon, as we see in this diagram. As we put all these practices in place every day through consistency, we more and more stand with Jesus miracle ready to respond to the needs of others whenever it's needed, whether that's 2:30 in the morning, high noon, or dinner time. We never know when we'll be needed, but we learn to be open when we're called. And then we turn the corner into afternoon and evening. The practices remain the same as any situations arise for guidance and as our chime rings again to recite our daily reminder. And then finally, we conclude our day with another meditation period as close to bedtime as possible. Jesus says this about morning and evening practice from Lesson 61 in the workbook. Be sure both to begin and end the day with a practice period. Thus you will awaken with the knowledge of the truth about yourself, reinforce this acknowledgement throughout the day, and turn to sleep as you reaffirm your function and your only purpose here. Some students like to give themselves another study period in the evening as well to review the text section or workbook lesson from the morning's reading. So there we have it, the 7-fold daily practice that we've condensed for simplicity into a 5-fold one. The 5 steps for us to take away today are 1. Morning and evening meditation. 2. Morning study. 3. Frequent reminders. 4. Asking for guidance. And 5. Giving miracles. Like I said, seeing the practice of A Course in Miracles laid out like this in a logical, practical way completely changed how I do ACIM on a daily basis. It really elevated my practice where I could engage in it on both the internal level as well as the external or interpersonal level. The Course really is both of these, and both need equal time and attention. Again, to follow up, you can watch the Circle of Atonement 60-minute talk on walking the path of A Course in Miracles at circleofa.org/podcast. So let's end once again with our passage that we have been ingraining into our mind today as we go through the daily practice. Let's listen as if Jesus is talking to us. You can close your eyes if you want. The slogan for this crusade is listen, learn, and do. This means listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first 2 are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. And I'll leave you with that to ponder. Thanks for joining me on the ForgiveNest Podcast. I'm Alison Anton. It was great talking to you.